As 2024 comes to a close, I love to reflect back on the best watches of this year. These are all watches that I got hands-on with at some point, and they're from many different price points, starting with watches around $200, going into the tens of thousands of dollars. So let's get right into the list. Let's start with my number one pick. So the first watch on this list is not my number one watch. I'm not putting these in any order. However, it's a very strange watch that I didn't see anybody talk about, and there's probably a very good reason for it. It's a Ralph Lauren watch. I actually featured a Ralph Lauren watch on my worst list, and I am featuring one here on my best list. This is a crazy watch that they came out with this year. It's coming in two different forms. There's a cushion shape and then a more traditional round shape. I really like the cushion shaped case that they've made. These are in sterling silver or gold, and they are hand engraved. This is a crazy watch that I normally would not feature here on my channel. I really fell in love with it. I thought it was beautiful, something handcrafted here in the United States. So the cases are actually made in New York. The straps are hand tooled in Texas. It's a $24,000 watch, I believe in sterling silver, and it gets a Piaget movement inside because of their relationship with Richemont. So this is a high-end watch. It gets a high-end price tag. It's pretty cool, and it's definitely not for everyone. Next is a group of watches that I have been speaking the praises of here on my channel since the day that they came out. They are the Zenshin from Citizen. They came out with an automatic with a small seconds. They came out with two eco drives. There's a chronograph and then a time only that gets a day date. My favorite out of the trio has to be the chronograph, and my favorite color is the black and white dial. So this is a reverse panda. I think it looks amazing. It's one of my favorite watches that came out this year out of all the watches that we're talking about today because it is very affordable. It's around $625. You can get them on sale through Citizen and other websites. It's a solar powered watch. It's eco drive, so it's powered by any light. They also get a beautiful textured dial and of course sapphire crystal, and they are made out of super titanium, which is basically titanium with an extra hard coating. So I would definitely go with that black and white dial. It's my favorite. It reminds me of a lot of other watches that are way more expensive, and that is definitely a good thing when you're talking about a watch that costs around $625 new. So I get a lot of watches here on the channel for review that are lent into the channel, and I have to give them back. One of the watches that was very difficult for me to give back this year was the Zenith triple calendar in green. This was a special boutique edition that I had in for review, and I fell in love with it. They cost around $13,000 to $14,000, somewhere in that range. You can get them on a bracelet or a strap. They're just a really good looking watch. They're pretty complicated. You're also getting a moon phase on these. They're really nicely sized. You're of course getting an El Primero movement inside. There's just a lot that goes into this watch. And I feel like when you look at the competition for $13,000, $14,000, there aren't many watches out there that can compete. This is good looking, it's functional, and it's a Zenith. So I absolutely love this watch. The next watch on this list is a Bulova. It's a Marine Star. It's a dive watch. It was released earlier this year, and it gets a Precisionist movement. I made a whole dedicated video about this watch. The Precisionist movement is just an underrated movement for what you're actually getting. You're getting a very smooth sweep second, something comparable to a very high beat movement. In fact, it's better than a high beat movement that you would get from someplace like Grand Seiko. It's almost like a spring drive on the cheap. It's not as smooth as a spring drive movement, but considering that it costs only $600 and spring drives cost a lot more money, considering the watches that they're in cost a lot more money, a Precisionist movement is a bargain. And I think a lot more people need to pay attention to Bulova and their use of the Precisionist movement. Hopefully they make their way into some more interesting watches this year. This was a very interesting watch. It's a dive watch with 200 meters of water resistance, a ceramic bezel, a textured dial. It's an overall very good looking watch. I wish it was a little bit smaller, but it definitely was one of my favorite watches of 2024. The next watch on this list comes from a brand that asks the question, what if? What if a watch that you know and love, like the Type 20, had a predecessor? That's what they did. They came out with the Type 10. It's a completely imagined watch. It's a history that never happened. And what they've made is a very interesting watch from scratch. The brand is Alborn, and the watch is the Type 20. The brand is headed by a guy who actually helped revive two awesome brands, Angelus and Arnold & Son, and he decided to start his own brand. This gets a Valjoux 7750 that's been really reworked. It's a chronograph with a mono pusher. It's just a really good looking watch, very grainy dial, something very different, something very interesting. You're also getting a DLC coated bezel, which looks very vintage. I really like this watch, and I hope they keep on doing what they're doing. They come in at around $4,000, so they're not cheap, but I think for the price, you're getting a lot of watch, and that's the reason why I really would love to own one of these in my collection. The next watch on this list, when I made the video about it here on my channel, I got a lot of feedback that the dial looked like a weird emoji face. And once I saw that, I kind of couldn't unsee it. Unfortunately, but I still think this is one of the best watches of 2024. It's the Spearfish Dual Time from Zelos. I thought this watch was just a really cool watch for the price. It's like a mini halo watch from Zelos. Again, I got a lot of flack for saying that as well. It comes in titanium. It's getting a Swiss Sellita SW300 with a module on top that gives you a grand date, a GMT, a 24-hour subdial that has a little map on it that is really well loomed, and all the loom here is really, really well done. It gets a custom rotor. It just looks really good. It comes on a bracelet. It has that sapphire dial. The one that I have has a blue tinted sapphire. It's actually a plastic piece that I think goes over the sapphire crystal, but that doesn't really matter. It looks blue. It looks like a sapphire dial. I think it's beautiful. I think it's a really cool watch with really cool functionality, and it just looks good in the dark. I love that. It's just a fun watch from Zelos, and it cost around $2,200. I think most of these are sold out. I think there are a few still available. Definitely pick one up if you want something from a small micro independent brand that is interesting. One of my favorite watches on this list is from Moser. I actually featured a Moser on my worst list. It wasn't really a bad watch at all. It was just something that I didn't find appealing, but this watch hits on all cylinders when it comes to Moser. It's their Pioneer with a retrograde seconds. And you get to see the mechanism that works that retrograde seconds. It works in 30 seconds, it flies back, and then it does the next 30 seconds. And you can even see everything working. It costs around $20,000. It looks like a Pioneer. It gets 120 meters of water resistance. Just a really good looking watch. The Pioneer, already a really good looking watch. This gives it a little bit of a technical look. Very modern, very clean lines, like you would expect from Moser, but with a little twist. And that's why I love this watch. I really want to own a Moser. Maybe 2025 is the year I'm going to buy a Moser. I want to give a quick shout out to the Citizen Serato here. That's a $375 watch that's ultra thin, under 5 millimeters thick. It's Eco Drive, and it gets a really cool dial. Really a great watch for the price. Something very unexpected from Citizen that I think is going to sell very well. It looks a lot more expensive than its price tag, and that is definitely a good thing. Definitely one of the best watches from Citizen and one of the best watches of 2024. So hopefully yesterday there was a video released by Teddy Balthazar where he has a lot of content creators from YouTube and Instagram to talk about their most worn watch of 2024. And I was on that video, and the watch that I featured was my Toledano & Chan B1. A watch that I think is incredibly interesting for the $4,000 price tag. You're getting 904L stainless steel, a lapis dial, lots of inspiration from some cool watches like the King Midas, but also the Whitney Museum here in New York and a few other brutalist designs. A very, very cool watch, something different, something that you're not seeing everybody wear, and I love that, and that's the reason why I love the Toledano & Chan B1. And that's why it was my most worn watch of 2024 and one of my favorite watches of the year. So this could be my favorite watch of 2024. It is definitely one of my most worn watches as well. Next to that Toledano & Chan, it is my Vulcain Nautic Skin Diver, on their new bracelet. Now, the Nautic Skin Diver, I don't believe came out in 2024. I believe it came out in 2023, late 2023. But they came out with a new bracelet for it this year, and it transforms the watch into something completely different. Very vintage feeling, very vintage looking, but thoroughly modern. I love the bracelet. It's a solid link bracelet that you don't see very often. You don't see any brands taking a chance like this. It's extremely well made. You're getting screwed links, solid end links, quick release, all of that good stuff. Micro adjust built into a really nice clasp, but it's paired with, of course, the Nautic Skin Diver, which is already a really good looking watch. I have the blue dial, ceramic bezel. These get ETA movements, which is kind of rare these days, and you're getting 200 meters of water resistance, all that good stuff, built into a watch that costs under $2,000 on that bracelet, and I highly, highly recommend the bracelet. They recently came out with the beads of rice. I still would go with this bracelet over the beads of rice. Hands down my favorite watch of 2024, especially because it's so affordable. Furlan Marri did something very unexpected this year. They came out with a watch called the Disco Volante. It's modeled after vintage disc watches that came out in the 60s and 70s. They look a lot more expensive than they actually are. They have beautiful dials that are layered. There's some special lume that they've put into these. They also get a beautiful hand wound movement that is finished by Furlan Marri, which is pretty cool as well. These watches aren't cheap for the brand. However, what they've been doing lately is pretty exciting. And this watch, I think, comes in at around $2,700. It does not look like a $2,700 watch. If another brand, a more expensive brand, came out with this watch and they put a $10,000 price tag on it, I think people would buy it at that $10,000 price point. But since it's Furlan Marri, they put $2,700 on it. It might seem like it's expensive for that brand. And I've seen these hands-on. They're beautifully made, really good-looking watches for the price. The next two watches almost made it on my worst watches of 2024. And I think there's something there. I think there are watches that could be interchanged between these two lists. It really depends on how you look at it. The two watches that I'm talking about are both from IWC. They're both perpetual calendars and they're both chronographs. They're both very expensive watches. The first one is their Eternal calendar that they came out with that I think is aesthetically beautiful. I love the dome sapphire crystal that they put on it. Beautiful. And it's a first. So it's basically the first secular perpetual calendar that takes into account leap year exceptions by skipping 3 leap years over 400 years. So it's something that is pretty technical, but something that maybe you really don't need. Also, it has a moon phase that's accurate to 45 million years or something like that, which is insane. But it's also made out of platinum and they're charging $170,000. $170,000, a lot of money. However, keep in mind that their watches tank on the secondary market. I own 2 perpetual calendar chronographs from IWC. One I paid around $6,000 for. That's the GST in titanium. And then the other one that I have was their second most expensive watch for the year that it came out. That is the Angenour digital perpetual calendar with a flyback chronograph in grade 5 titanium and ceramic. So that was around a $55,000 watch. I think I paid under $14,000 for that watch. So there you go. These will be a bargain on the secondary market. Their second watch that I want to talk about is the Aqua Timer that came out that was done in collaboration with Aquaman. So they actually did a collaboration where all the villains were wearing perpetual calendars. These were digital perpetual calendars like the one that I have. However, in the Aqua Timer case, they get a digital date, a digital month, and a digital leap year. These are also chronographs, however, not flyback chronographs. These are just traditional chronographs. These have a silly price as well. These come in at around $57,000. You'll be able to get these for a lot cheaper on the secondary market. I think these are really cool. A different take on that Angenour and a very cool watch. Now, you know this list could not be complete if I did not bring up Timex. I have to bring up at least 3 Timex on this list. The number one pick for me is the Deepwater Reef. I absolutely loved this watch. It's in titanium. It gets lots of lume. It's just a really cool looking watch inspired by 1970s divers. Completely unexpected, obviously, from the brand Timex to come out with something like this. 200 meters of water resistant sapphire crystal, really clean looking, very nice straps on here that are very safe and they have no keepers. I like that as well. I really loved these watches. Then the second watch that I loved was the GMT that they came out with, not the James brand collaboration. I really loved their Expedition North that they came out with, standard GMT with an NH34. So they actually switched over to an NH34 for this watch. They lowered the price. It's an office GMT, so it's not a Miyota 9000 series GMT, so it's not a traveler's GMT. This is an office GMT or a military GMT, but a lot of people compared it to a Black Bay Pro, and I have to agree with them. It does look a lot like a Black Bay Pro, but for around $600. Actually, it's less than $600, and you can get them on sale. Sometimes you can get like 15% off. I believe I actually got 15% off on this watch, and I think it's worth every penny. I love it. I wear it a lot. That's the reason why I wanted to put it on this list. Last but not least is the E-Line, a watch that was completely unexpected from Timex. I did not expect to like this watch as much as I did. It's a re-release of their original E-Line from 1983, I want to say. It's a great looking watch that is very comfortable, very fun, and affordable. I think these cost around 200 and change. It comes on a stretchy bracelet. Just a fun, automatic, vintage-inspired TV-style watch. You can't really go wrong. It's a vintage timepiece that looks vintage, but is thoroughly modern. I love these watches. I love all three of these watches from Timex. Timex have been on fire in 2024. I hope they keep the momentum going in 2025. We're coming to the end of this list. There's just a few more watches that I want to mention. Of course, I have to mention Christopher Ward. The 12X was hands down my favorite watch of the year from Christopher Ward, and it was one of my favorite watches from the brand. I love this watch. I got it later in the year. This would probably have been my most worn watch of 2024 because when I got it, I wore it for about 2 months straight, and I still pick it up from time to time because I absolutely love it. It's something different. It looks crazy on your wrist. It looks like a way more expensive watch than it actually is. And it is kind of expensive for a Christopher Ward, but when you consider what you're getting, it's insane. It's a great bargain, and I highly recommend checking out the 12 in general. I really love that lineup of watches, but the 12X just takes it to a new level. And I also do want to mention the Lumiere here because I did really love that watch as well. It's sort of like a Yachtmaster Titanium on the cheap. You're getting a ton of lume with those lume blocks that they've put. They use Global Light on this watch, not something that's typically used by a lot of watch brands. Extremely bright lume, very lightweight because it's in titanium. Just a really good looking monochromatic look to the watch. I loved it, and it's definitely one of the best watches of 2024. The next watch, and one of the last watches on this list, is the Carbon Fiber PRX. That was a watch that kind of took me by surprise when it came out. It's still kind of affordable, under $1,000 or just about $1,000. It's thin, it looks good, it's a PRX, but in carbon. The dial is in carbon, so that's something you have to think about because that is a full commitment to carbon. When you're looking at the dial, you're looking at carbon, the case is in carbon. The only thing that's not, I believe, is the case back and the buckle. Of course, they don't have a carbon bracelet for this yet, but maybe they're working on that. I have no idea. It's lightweight, and if you want something with that blackout look, this definitely achieves it, and it's a little bit high-end for the price tag. Last but not least is a watch brand that I've never mentioned here on my channel. However, they revamped. They actually were sold. I think they went out of business and they were sold at some point. It's HYT. It's the brand that uses the liquid to tell the time. They sometimes use hands in conjunction with that, but they came out with a new watch. It's the T1 series in titanium. I think these are really good looking watches that get an integrated bracelet look. They've changed the look of their watches a little bit. I've always been intrigued by them, and they are a lot cheaper now because of going out of business and now being bought again and revamped. The new watches obviously aren't very affordable. However, when they hit the secondary market, maybe they will be. Right now you can get, I think they're H0s. I think that's what they're called. They come in at around $11,000 depending on where you're looking. $11,000 for a watch that is very technical. However, if you ever need to get it fixed, that could be a problem. You know, now's an opportunity to own one while you could actually still get it serviced. Really cool watches, and I really love their new model, and that's kind of the reason why I put it on this list. I have mentioned a lot of watches in this video. Tell me what you think down in the comments below. There are other watches that I could have included, but it would have been a 3-hour long video and nobody wants that. Tell me what you think down in the comments below. Tell me which watch you would have included. Maybe tell me what watch you would have removed from my list. I want to hear from you guys. Please also don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon. It is super helpful for the channel and I very much appreciate it. Anyway, guys, thank you for logging on. Thank you for watching this video. For those of you out there celebrating Christmas, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and I will see you guys in the next video.